podcast over at handcannononline.com, where last week's episode was hot, but this one's not. With me, as usual, is is Fraser Belfort, DeffHeadDice on all things social media. Welcome.
I try not to encourage you by laughing at them, but that one was good. I appreciate that one. I am doing well. Thank you, Matt.
I don't let you introduce our guest because I am a bad host and I forgot his name.
Well, at least you're honest about it. So we have stolen from one of our other regional podcasts here in Southern Ontario. We've stolen Darrell from Combo Smite. Welcome. Thank you for joining us there.
Hey, how's it going, Combo Smite Darrell? And as always, I play poorly.
Good to know. I'll have to seek you out next time I'm at an event in Canada. Sadly, though, I will not be attending Attack X this time around. Because we got that out about 3 weeks now. So, It's going to be fun. And we'll talk a little more about that coming up. But we'll go ahead and throw it on over to Fraser for all of our bookkeeping purposes.
So eventually there's going to be an audio bit that Danny can just throw in here, so you don't have to hear me do this every single time. But we have a Facebook page. We have a Twitter account. Both are TrollbloodScrum. We have the Battle Reporter, so report your games. If you're not using it, let me know why, because we get spikes where people use it for a while and don't. So, for those who are eagerly waiting an update on the Who Wants to Be a Podcaster or War Machine Horde's podcaster contest, I've been super swamped, so look for an update that in the next week or two. Oh, and one thing that actually we want to cover under the bookkeeping, coming up in September is John Con. Menoth John is doing a charity event in his hometown of the glorious and glamorous Racine, Wisconsin. I'll post a link to the event details, but you can get in some good games of War Machine. He's doing a beer and coffee tasting with Rich from Beer Machine, and all the proceeds go to a local charity, the local food bank in Racine. So I'll throw a link up there, and if you can make it out to that event, it sounds like it would be a blast. I'm actually envious of those who can make it, because I would actually like to go out there.
Yeah, absolutely. A fitting last hurrah for John, who's announced he's, at the very least, taking a break from painting with Menoth John and or podcasting. But we hope to hear from him again at some time again in the future. We'd love to have him on if he would come. Always a great way to raise a glass to Ron.
Ron.
Indeed. All right, and last part of booking, don't forget you can also catch this cast on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/DeffHeadDice. We usually go live about 5-ish minutes beforehand, so you catch a little bit of the pre-show talk. And before anybody gets a hold of it on YouTube, which we also have at youtube.com/DeffHeadDice. Plugging it. And you'll be able to catch any of the bloopers, weird stuff. If you catch out last week, I was shirtless because it was 85 degrees in my house. Much to the chagrin of one of our podcast members. Danny, I know you're still angry at me. I'm sorry. I'll be more modest from here on out, I swear. I'm not going to be more modest.
Don't let him shame you.
At any rate, come watch us, come talk to us. We're almost always active in chat, so if you want to ask us questions while we're doing stuff, you got a question about a list, or you just want to say hello, come and interact with us. We really like to do it. Gives us another reason to talk to fans. So, anything else in news this time around? Do we just want to announce TACX, or what do we want to talk about?
I don't think there was anything super exciting in the last few days, but that may be because I've been heads down at work, so I didn't hear anything. Have we had? Do you know of any news PP related news that's popped up in the last week, Darrell?
Nothing. Gen Con just wrapped up. All the Masters proceedings are up online. I'm sure you can find them at Discount Games and on Privateer Press's website as well. Lots of the same as you would expect. Lots of Crix, Signar, Convergence, and Retribution. Who knew? So, outside of that, though, you did see all the con exclusives go up. So, like a good troll player, I got my lovely Borka bust here. He's all primed up. His shoulder pads sitting on the desk over there. It'll go on after because you got to paint underneath it diligently like a painter. So there is that. That you've just seen the litany of Grimkin that are finally hitting the shelves normally, so everybody will have a chance at those. And then you'll start to see him in tournaments, and you'll be like, "What the fuck does an Arcana do?" And be very confused when that happens.
Yeah, we've already got
flip the table when.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, we've already got some of the people in our meta
Prey
playing.
on this for no reason. This is bullshit.
Yeah.
Sweet deal. All right, well, let's go ahead and just throw it into games played. I'll throw it on you, Fraser. You get anything done this week?
I did. I had a
Last
game.
3 weeks?
Actually, 3 weeks. I've had one game in the last. Well, I had the team tournament back in the beginning of August where I got my teeth kicked in, but we talked about that last episode. The only game I've had since is we've been doing some practice games for the WTC Team Canada team tournament that's happening this Saturday. So I managed to get a game in against Scorn, and I think. I always forget the caster's name, but I dropped my Gristle 2 list in, which was a Band of Heroes, which really was the perfect, and it was the only list I brought because I wanted to get some time in with it. And unfortunately, my opponent and team member only brought his Scorn list with the, what's the caster that has to get corpses or souls whenever his guys dies and can hand out abilities. I forget, but anyways, basically he needs to get souls, and because I was removing from playing everything on a regular basis, it pretty much countered all of his tactics. He also had the ability to go incorporeal, and because of the stone, he couldn't go incorporeal. So pretty much, I had the perfect counter to his list, and it was a bit of a curb stomp on Robert that way. So, but it was good to actually get a win in because I've been going lossless for far too long in my recent troll games.
Well, you mean lost full?
Yes, there we go. Lost full. There we go. Winless. There we go.
Yeah, Grimkin are definitely interesting. I had my first game against them, second game against them, against the Wanderer, and it was an interesting experience. The list mostly consisted of heavies, so he had a Cage Rager, 2 Skin and Moans, 2 Rattlers, the Crabbits, and one unit of the main infantry units, and some smattering of the support, the girl ladies that give abilities out and things like that. At any rate, it played into Doomy 2, and he just couldn't really match my threat. So at some point, you just have to start the peace trade. My Doomy 2 list, for reference, while we're talking about it, is going to be Doomshaper 2, Bunker is my objective, Runebearer, Mountain King, Mulg, Earthborn, Axer, 2 Whelps, Janissa, Krillstone maximum with Elder, and a Dunia not. All under Power of Dunia with Whelps, Janissa free. I don't know really what models end up being free. They're just going to be there anyway. So basically it just amounts to Mountain King trades up on a heavy, and my Earthborn managed to get preferential positioning near a forest really early on. And so he had 2 heavies sort of out almost on a flank, but far away from the Mountain King, to where that he could potentially bog him down and then set up charges. Well, when your Earthborn just runs 22 inches to engage models, it tends to fuck around with your opponent. So, so you've got Feet for +3 speed.
Okay.
Horus for +2 speed. Rush for an additional +2 inches. So your speed 10 +2 inches, 22 inches of threat.
That is pretty gross. In a good way, of course.
So I basically shot it across the map next to a wall. Also under the stone. So I basically just let him chew on an Earthborn at armor 22 for a whole turn and a half before the Earthborn, took one of them out, and the Mountain King basically just mopped the rest of the table up. It was just I don't know, Doomshaper 2 just has a way to resoundingly affect the board. Like, if you see a decisive moment and you can remove one of the big threats to your king, or even your major pieces, it really helps. And then you've also got Mulg backing it up, so it's just generally pretty solid. And then eventually I just won on scenario, and that was my first round of the tournament I went to last week. Second round was against Circle. It was an otter list. So it was Kruger with Woldrath, Loki, Getterix, Gorax, and a Waller. And so it was very beast heavy against my Doomshaper 2 list. Well, my opponent didn't take into account the threat range, and I basically aced the Walgrath in one turn with the Mountain King due to Dunia's Knot. And then Getterix and Loki just could not get the job done after that on the Mountain King with all the wild shedding and healing and all that kind of stuff. And Kruger just doesn't have the kit effectively to deal with that much beef. So I basically tabled my opponent and only lost 8 points worth of whelps.
Oh, wow.
So pretty resounding win. Yeah, it was a pretty resounding win. It was really difficult for him to come back after I took his Colossus or his Gargantuan out, and basically risked nothing doing so.
No, in either of these games, were you playing the scenario at all, or were you going for the attrition? Or
I could have. So first round, I scored 2 points just out of my natural positioning because I pushed past the zone with feet, and I ended up going first both matches. So at that point, it was less of a I'm already going to go up 2 rounds in a tournament where that's probably only going to go 3 rounds. And so I'm guaranteed final table, and then it's on me to win, and I didn't care whether or not I got second or third. It was more about the win.
Mm-hmm.
So scenario was a concern, but it was secondary. For instance, in the second game, I could have just won on scenario easily by clearing the zone with anything that I had, and then just won the game. But I decided that I wanted to make a point.
Wanted to punish your opponent?
I wanted to make a point. Like I was in the driver's seat the whole game here, so yeah. So I ended it in that way. And then final round was against Crix. It was Ragnar with a single Gargantuan. Then I'll have that list here. Clearly, I'm not prepared because why would I be? It's also Power Adunia list, so we're looking at Ragnar, Runebearer. Oh no, that's not the right one. Sorry, Danny. I don't intend to make this harder on you. Ragnar with Bunker, Runebearer, Mountain King, Earthborn, Mauler, Axer, Slag Troll.
Nice.
Double Whelps, Janissa. It's basically a very similar list to the other with minimum stone there. So my opponent dropped a Jack Heavy Venethrax list, which was kind of scary. It had Death Jack, it had a Corruptor, it had Malice, it had a couple of other things, but it was definitely a little worrisome for me. So much to the point where I had to bank on him committing too much. So what I did was I used the Mountain King to run into engagement turn 2 with Ragnar's speed up with stone and as much as I could lay it on and force him to commit as much as he could, while I backed the Mountain King up with the Slag Mauler and the Earthborn, banking on I'd have to swing another 20 plus points after that to actually get the job done. So my opponent basically went in. On one die, he got all 8 attacks that the Death Jack could get in on the Mountain King.
Okay.
And he rolled 3, 4, 5, 5, 5, 6, 6, 6 on one die.
Oh, jeez.
And then with the minus or the mortality from Venethrax basically made him -1 on armor the whole time. So it was just basically like he basically did like 40 damage rolling one die.
Well, that's gotta hurt.
It was pretty bad. Thankfully, though, all of the other things that he committed to it were minimal, which left Venethrax because it was the only thing that could get past the Whelp line because he had no other reach heavies. So Venethrax had to commit and left himself really low on focus. And due to the positioning of the Whelps, I was able to have a charge lane after the fact with the Mauler on Venethrax. And so I managed to get in there. I cleared a lane with a Slag Troll. A Slag Troll just aced a heavy, like, in 3 attacks.
Oh, yes.
Just fucking wiped it off the table. And I'm like, that's a pretty good light beast right there.
Yeah.
And then I had my Mauler go in and finish the job. There was an outside chance that I could have walked the Earthborn out of combat to take a free strike to throw a heavy at Venethrax. and knock him down first. But ultimately speaking, the Mauler just had enough fury and enough power with Pulverizer and Rage to just get the fucking job done.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't matter at that point. So then I go 3-0, win the tournament. I probably could have dropped Doomshaper into the Minothorax pairing, but it wasn't even DNC1, but I felt like playing my third list. And hey, Bob's your uncle, I won the game. So that was my experiences there. How about you, Darrell? You got anything good to talk about?
Just been practicing for the WTC fundraiser, so just getting some reps in with my team. Like Fraser there, I played against Scorn. My game was against Makeda 1. I think you played against Zal, didn't you?
Yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, I played against Makeda 1 against Kassam. It's up on YouTube now if anybody wants to watch it. It turned into I made a slight positioning error, or it got nudged, one of the two.
Well, it is Kassam. I mean,
yeah,
sorry.
Kassam's tape measure has bulldoze, so he ended up being able to get a beast onto Ragnar. Before I get too far, and my Ragnar list is a little bit different. It is Ragnar with a Rune Bear, double Mauler, double Earthborn, triple Axer, free
nice.
Whelps, free Janissa, max Creelstone with Elder, and a Sorcerer.
I like the triple Axer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's the one I run. And it's Power Dunia, and the Rune Bear is free as well. But anyway, he ended up being able to get his what's the name of the heavy? The Gladiator onto Ragnar. Shouldn't have, but whatever. He got it on there, failed the assassination run, and then I wiped out his army. and he had a last-ditch attempt with Makeda onto Ragnar, and he couldn't even come close. And then Ragnar squished him. So, without the slight positioning area, Kassam didn't have a game at all. With how the scenarios are now, Earthborns are pure money. With the line of sight blocking terrain in the middle, Earthborns are so good. And like we were talking earlier, when CID comes through and they go down to 14, so good. I don't know how that's slipping through, but I love it.
Yes.
I love it too. You know what? And because of that, I've got 2 of those in my cart waiting to be purchased.
Oh yeah, I usually pretty much every list I have runs. I start with Mauler Earthborn, and then it's built the list after that. But yeah, practice has been going good. My Ragnar Calandra pairing is going fine. The Ragnar list that I've run has been pretty much unchanged for quite a while, so I've got a lot of practice with it, and you can drop it into just about anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said about familiarity when you're talking about list pairings in that respect. So, as a pair, what is your... I mean, do you have a specific plan for Crix and Signar, that kind of thing?
Calandra drops into Crix, no problem. It's a Band of Heroes, so remove from play plus Starcross works pretty well. As well, I have found that Long Riders work really well when your melee attacks do remove from play. When you can slam through people, works really well. They can wipe out a unit on their own, and when they eventually get their 2 minutes,
is only on warrior models, right?
Yeah. And
it is a shame you can't put a battle engine in that list.
Oh, it would be nice.
Oh yes.
When the and I run champions and things like that, it's a Band of Heroes list. When the CID goes through, the list just gets better.
Especially if you got champs in there.
Pretty damn good. I mean, you'll miss the remove from play a little bit, but
No, the Calandra will still be Band of Heroes.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, because the Sanguine Bond on the champs, plus the 2-inch melee on the Long Riders, gold.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny.
The list is Def 14 under Starcross. So.
And if you get some, do you have any Earthborns in that list?
1 Mauler, 1 Earthborn. Well, I'll just tell you a list: a Mauler Earthborn, 2 Falcallers, a Chronicler Horthel, max Stone with Elder, max Champs with Scaldy, max Long Riders, and Min Warders.
Interesting. I always found Horthel to be a little too expensive for the benefit, even as badass as he is on his on his own.
He is expensive until you consider flag scoring.
Yeah,
it's true. He's fast. He's hard to kill. He stays there for a long time.
Yeah, and when you have the box overkill, because he's got the 10 boxes and the 8 boxes, and he's got arm 20 under stone, arm 20 with 10 boxes on a flag, you have to overcommit to kill that most of the time.
Oh yeah, that's
whatever they kill him with, whatever they overcommit with, when you place Horthol on his base, they've wasted damage, so they've had to overcommit, and you're usually going to score or contest. And I find that he works well in a pairing if you have. This list doesn't have it, but if you have Janissa throw flag, she's really good as well, because you can do a tectonic shift, push people out of the 4-inch scoring, and you're laughing.
And Janissa is actually turning out to be a much more valuable support solo than I anticipated at the beginning of Mark III. And in fact, even outside of theme lists, she's proven very valuable at her point cost when she's not free. Tectonic shift is still money. The hill is sort of meh, but even just Rockhammer and a magical armor-piercing pickaxe is pretty fucking good.
Yeah, I agree. Throw the hill out. It's useless, especially with more dense terrain. There's almost nowhere to put it anymore. Yeah. But like you said, the armor-piercing, tectonic shift, solid solo.
Oh yeah, you put her in on a fucking armor 18 heavy, she'll just like rip an arm off of a jack if your opponent underestimates her. It's just like 4 points.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
I got my value back right there, and you might not kill her in return. Still steady and tough.
Yeah.
Seems pretty fucking good. Alrighty, so now outside of your prep, so you're doing this as part of a team tournament for Canada, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
So who are the other members on your guys' team right
now? Mine is myself, Combo Smite Nick, Combo Smite Mark, Combo Smite Cassim, Combo Smite Todd.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. Yeah.
Why would your parents all name you Combo Smite than your name? I mean, it's got to be you guys were destined to be on this podcast together.
It's a family tradition. Don't want to get into it. It's, very small community.
It's your brothers from another mother.
Exactly.
No. It's even more intimate than that, but we'll go ahead and leave it there.
Oh, they're from rural Ontario. Oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
All right, how about you, Fraser? Who else is on your team?
So I have our captain is Rob, the other local troll player. We've got Phil, who was one of the hosts of Four New Gamers. We've got Robert, our local scorn player, and we have our ringer. We have Mike O'Brien, who was one of the members of the Northern Ireland WTC team, who has moved locally. So any opportunity I have to get him on one of my team events, I do it every single time. And apparently I creeped him out a little bit when I told him. I realized he actually won the Ireland Masters like 2-3 years ago with Trolls. So he was a little creeped out that I actually knew that was who he was when he moved into town. I'm not sure how I figured that out, but apparently I creep people from abroad, and when they come to my city, I just freak them out a little bit.
You're quite the stalker there, Fraser.
Yeah. How do you think I got on this podcast?
I guess.
So we've got two troll players. So Rob and myself. We've got a scorn player and 2 cricks. So we're going to be the people that don't like playing cricks. We've got 1 ghost fleet, and Mike just likes playing whatever he likes to play. So I don't think he's doing anything super gimmicky other than playing cricks.
You guys have a super weird composition as far as the team goes. So it's 2 cricks, 2 trolls. It's super weird.
Yeah, whatever.
And scorn.
You're not going to spread the gamut. You're just going to smother your in.
Well, we don't plan on winning this thing. It's going to be another Shark Tank, because almost all the WTC Team Canada guys are on a team of one form or another. So we're just there to have fun and help and give them our money to help pay for getting over there.
At least they're not all on the same team like last year.
No, they spread it out last year because Bubba only was on one team, and Dave.
I must have been thinking the year before then. The one year we went, I was like, oh my god. Here's our money. See you later.
Yep.
I've got your super secret tech though, Fraser. The way to beat Corey Doyle though is to not laugh at any of his jokes. It throws him off.
That is his kryptonite.
Just let him think he's not funny.
Yeah. Then he over extends himself by trying to throw out even more jokes and distracts him from the actual gameplay.
Okay. Exactly. He'll just put Haley up a little too far. Boom, dead.
Okay, good to know.
I hope
So
you listen to this.
how did you guys decide on your team composition? Is it just what everyone wanted to bring, or
Yeah, just whatever. We didn't have much forethought. It's like, what are you bringing? This is what I'm bringing. Okay. I mean, I don't. Both Rob and I only have one army. Like both of us only play trolls, and that's all we're going to play. So we didn't have a backup faction. And Phil had just bought Ghost Fleet and figured, I'm going to play it just because I don't know how long it'll be until it gets nerfed. And
he's got some time.
Yeah, a little bit. And Robert was either between this or Rhett, but I think he wants to play, he's bringing 2 Derp Turtles to in one of his lists, so he wanted to play the Derp Turtles.
Hey, it worked for the Germans.
Yep. So that was it. And again, we're just there to throw some dice, have some fun, talk to all the people we know. So that's the main reason. You
Buy
would.
the swag.
Oh yeah, there's always there's all the snacks as well. All the spouses are doing baking up stuff because apparently the biggest part of the fundraiser last year, other than the entry fee, was all the desserts that they brought along that they sold off. So apparently there's going to be desserts plenty.
Ooh, I look forward to it.
Awesome. I think that a pay-as-you-go potluck at a War Machine event would be fucking super. Like one guy brings bean dip, another guy brings wings, and sell it all off at, like you do it like a double ticket price, right? So double the entry and you get a plate of food too. So you go down the buffet line and get some cash, get some something to eat.
Yep. Although at the mall, I don't know if the mall would appreciate that we're at, so we'll see.
You can tell them to suck it. This is a capitalist country.
It's easier to ask forgiveness than permission.
Yes.
This is a true statement.
So what about your team, Darrell? What did you guys plan it out, or did you just whatever you guys were playing at the time?
We like to mix it up. So we've got Mark with Protectorate. I'm running Trolls. Nick is running Rhett. Cassim's running Scorn, and Todd is running Grimkin.
Interesting. Well, Mark has been on his Menoth run for a while, I know, because he'd given up Scorn, so he was sort of locked in. But
yeah, he's taking our break.
Yeah. And Cassim almost always plays Scorn, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's got Scorn and Minions.
Oh, okay, nice.
But he pretty much rides his Scorn all the time.
Yeah. So you're a little bit in the same boat as we were. So, but actually, I haven't shared my second list. So my first list is the Gristle 2 list I've talked about endlessly on this cast, which I blatantly stole from James White off of his World of Creel site. But I actually came up with my own list. Well, kind of for my second list. So I'm running Kalandra as well as my second, but I'm running her in Power of Dunya. So I'm running her with a Glacier King, 2 Earthborns, a Mauler, an Axer, 2 free Shamans, a free Whelps, and then a Max Stone with the Elder. So the thought is that as long as the Earthborns stay close to the Glacier King, they're getting the concealment, so +2 defense. So it'll be def 14 to shooting to begin with, and if you put Bullet Dodger on one of them, it'll go up to 16 before you go into the for against any shooting, and then 14 if against combat. And then figure there should be enough with the Cloud Wall from the Shaman to protect Kalandra, and then until I need to move Bullet Dodger back. So it seemed like a fun list because I don't think I've played the Mountain King a fair bit, so I wanted to try the Glacier King again. And I figure with Kalandra and the re-rolls and stuff like that, it should be a pretty solid list and hard to chew through.
Yeah, I like it. I think the Shaman is a really underrated solo. The phenomenal piece works really well, and when it's free, it's even better.
Yeah, and the biggest thing I like about it is that it's that 5-inch place after you pop the cloud. So I had a case where I've been able to move him like through a building to contest something on a turn. I basically threw him away because he was going to die the next turn. But it was able to save me a game just getting that guy over there with that place. Because you think about it, it's not, we don't get very many models we get to place after anything. So it's and again for free, he's well worth the points.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
So did you guys have a plan of attack against any of the, like, did you guys do any sort of planning on against some of the bigger lists, like the Kador Jack Heavy stuff, or have you, or Ghost Fleet or the Crix drops? Like, have you guys planned that out in the tournament?
They can drop me into heavy anything. The Ragnar list can do a 6-point strength swing. And with the number of boxes in the list, I can chew through a lot of beef. Like when your axes are coming in at strength 20
Oh
and it's
wow.
fresher, sure, keep your jacks nice and close together. I love it. You know, you can run in with those. You know, your mauler comes in with a with a +6 strength swing, and he's just pounding holes and stuff. So he comes in then at what, strength 22?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So yeah, 22. So you can punch holes in it. So even on people's feet turns, you can kill things. With the strength buffs, your throws come out really powerful as well.
Oh yeah, because you get extra distance as well, wouldn't you? Because of the strength buff.
You get extra distance. So even if you're just going for scenario play, it works well. So yeah, I'm dropping into the box skew lists with that. But I've also volunteered to be the bus victim. So it's my turn. We each take turns. So if there's a horrible list that no one wants to face, I'm going into it.
Yes, I've done that as well. My first example of that was going into the triple colossal ret list with my trolls, and that was fun. Although if I realized that one of the guys, two of the colossals couldn't actually do me any damage through the shooting, they just pushed you around. It would have I would have taken a slightly different approach. But that was on me not understanding what the guys did. But yes, I get thrown under the bus on a regular basis. I volunteer for it as well. So.
Yeah. Well, if you get dropped into those now, make sure you've got your Earthborn.
Oh, exactly. Well, every list I build either has an Earthborn or it has a bouncer, just so I can get the Earth's Blessing to make sure stuff doesn't get moved around.
Yeah, really, really solid.
Oh yeah.
I agree. Generally speaking, I when I'm on a team tournament, I'm usually anchoring, so they drop me first into whatever is difficult, but they don't throw me to the wolves. Generally speaking, they're not like, oh, this is unwinnable. Have a nice game over here.
Yeah, that's an interesting strategy. Our strategy tends to, like, we do all right. We haven't won a team tournament, but we do usually top third to top quarter. Our strategy is usually take one really bad matchup to make sure we get 3 good ones with how the pairings work. So that's how we tend to go. And then, your fourth one is whatever. But if you try and get the 3, then that's your point, right?
Yeah, exactly. That means you only have to win those 3, and the other 2 are gravy if you do.
Yeah. So, and it's worked all right.
Yeah, I think we played you in the last round of last year. I played the opponent the guy that was playing minions on your team last year. I forget who it was. I think someone had to fill in for someone who couldn't make it.
Oh yeah, Matt. You played Matt because Todd couldn't make it. So
yeah.
Had a last-minute substitution.
Yeah, so I dropped Madrek. I dropped Madrek 2 before the nerf into his minions. So
yeah, I'm sure Matt had a bad time.
I had to apologize afterwards. But inside, I really enjoyed it. I have to admit, I was feeling this is glorious. I do love me some good Madrek 2.
Yeah, that was a good tournament. I wrecked some people's days. I was running pre-nerf High Reclaimer and Amanad Raza. I wasn't a nice person that day either. So.
I'm glad I played Matt instead of you. So.
Yeah, it was a good time. The team tournaments always are. I find they're a nice breath of fresh air from your standard steamroller.
Yep.
It's a little bit more. It's funny. On one hand, there's more pressure, and on the other hand, it's a lot more relaxed because once a couple teammates have some wins, it doesn't matter anymore. You can sort of sit back, have a bit more of a relaxed game with your opponent. You still have to watch and pay attention, but there's not as much pressure.
Agreed.
Just the team aspect is nice.
Yeah, you can fuck around a little bit, not play optimal or not drop the optimal list, and not feel bad about it at that point.
Yeah, and not that it's a big deal anymore, but the DNC wasn't a huge thing then, so yeah, it's always a nice format.
And not to mention too, you have a better chance of being dropped into stuff that you actually want to play against, as opposed to, unless you're the one who's being thrown under the bus, you have a better chance of playing into stuff that won't be horrible for you.
Yeah, well, and it's funny. A lot of the teams, if you find if they have a minions player. And it's not so true anymore, but there used to be a scoring player. That's usually the best person. You can pick them out.
Yeah.
Scoring not so much anymore, but if you can see a minions play on a team, you're like, okay, that's the bus guy. Who do we have to worry about?
Yeah. And when you play, like, because typically these events we follow the WTC rules themselves. So do you usually pick first, or do you decide to choose the table side or the tables that you play on? Because I know there's some strategy, there's some thoughts on both sides on that one.
It's that's a point of contention between the people on our team right now.
Interesting.
It used to be. Well, let's throw it out to people listening here, because I don't think we had our conversation on our cast. So it used to be that tables were more important because layouts were so different.
Agreed.
Right. So being able to choose the optimal table for your team and your players was really important. It is my feeling that with 2017, table layouts and terrain quantities are more standardized.
Agreed.
So now I feel that choosing the matchups is more important than the table, because all your tables are going to have a line of sight blocker in the middle, and you're going to have 8 pieces.
True, but I mean, as a troll player, having a solid piece of terrain blocking or line of sight blocking terrain, a building so you can get your Earthborns up there so they're in the +2 armor, is more important than having forest. So I mean, in some cases, I can see for trolls, I'd rather be able to pick the table. But you're right. If you're trying to lock into those 3 wins or those 3 lists, you think you have a better odds of winning, then yeah, you have to pick the second or pick to go first. So that way
I will only agree with that to a point, because only in spread the net is that important, or not spread the net. Breakdown is that important because that's the only scenario that has a Warjack scoring zone in the middle. Every other scenario has either a circle or a space.
Oh, you're right. Interesting. Okay.
Now, what is it? Standoff is still broken as fuck, and you can score 5 points a turn. That one, it could be important to the Earthborn if you're sending the Earthborn past into the opponent zone. Then the line of sight blocker can be very important. But yeah, other than breakdown and standoff, your Earthborn's not going to be in the middle necessarily if you're looking to score with that piece.
Okay, so I guess it's more situational. You just and how often do we? I don't recall. Do we know what the scenarios are ahead of time, or do they typically not even bother telling us that? I can't remember if they told us ahead of time.
Told us for this one. They haven't told us for this one. For the OTC, they tell us ahead of time.
Interesting. Is that standard for WTC though?
I can't answer off the top of my head. I don't know offhand, but I'm fairly certain that they tell you. I mean, there's only 6 now anyway, so like,
yeah,
you're gonna get each one of them once.
Yeah, I mean, you could still tech your list in such a way that that could be very, very dramatically important.
True.
I mean, also what I have noticed is that this current round of Steamroller going first matters even more than it has before, and has a dramatic effect even on your fastest lists, whether or not you're going to get a leg up on scenario early on or easily. And then it comes down to list composition rather than gimmick kind of situation. So if you know ahead of time what you're going to be facing, that's pretty powerful from a strategy standpoint.
But then there's also arguments on the other side that going... Sorry, go ahead, Darrell.
No, you go ahead.
Well, there is some argument from the other side saying that if you're going second, that means you're scoring first. So you have the ability to get up on points sooner. If you can get in, clear out, get as much as you can up front and clear out anything that's contesting, you can get up on points earlier, which immediately puts your opponent off foot.
Yeah, it comes down to whether or not your opponent can, and this is sort of a term that's being thrown around lately, meaningfully contest. It's one thing to have 4 infantry models in a zone. It's quite another to have like an Arm 22 heavy.
Yeah, agreed.
Right. And it tends to be, and this is a generalization. It's not an absolute. It tends to be that getting those few models in the zone is what happens by turn 2 with a faster army. Now there are armies out there that can get across the midline and be 6 inches on your side of the table. Those are fewer and far between.
Yep.
And that's where the importance of your solos and things like that come in. More models like the Earthborn that you can punch a hole through, trample 16 inches across the board to
Yeah.
get into a zone. Things like that, right?
Or take something like Power of Dunia theme where you're getting +2 to your deployment. Any of those things that help as well. Not Power of Dunia, sorry,
like,
Band of Heroes.
Yeah, or abilities like Bulldoze and things like that.
Yeah.
I think all of their stock is going up. But really, it depends on the scenario. If your opponent does a good job of blocking the scenario close to them, like say, what is it, the Pit 2? Or not Pit 2, Standoff, where they've got the close zone with the objective, they can move through that, crowd around, it blocks line of sight for you, they can just move through it. There's a lot of things that you can do to prevent your opponent from getting too far away. Because I find you can give your opponent two control points and be all right for most scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. However, my experience in one test game with that particular scenario, and then one tournament game in that scenario.
Standoff or Pit?
The one that we just discussed, where it's got the offset objectives with the two triangles or two squares.
Spread the net.
Yeah,
that two flags, 2 rectangles off center, and
no, the one that's got a circle in the center, rectangles on the outside with objectives.
Oh, barbells.
Yeah, that one's weird, but similar in layout. But fast lists, my fast list tended to get to a point where there was almost no way that my opponent could push in without putting himself in an unfavorable spot. So it leaves it open to basically anything that can be fast, like Jarl, Gristle 2, Gristle 1, and Band of Heroes would be kind of a nightmare in a lot of these new scenarios. Like an early feat, even as crappy as their feat is right now, where your army is just beyond the zones by 6 or so inches, and your opponent now has to deal with all of it.
Just like a double Fen Blades idea, just jam them through.
Exactly, or even double Fin Blades, single Crow Warriors. Like you could just do all sorts of weird shit with that list composition, and you could even use AD, just cheap AD shit that you just run. Like you could even be Burrowers. Burrowers are dirt cheap; they don't do anything now. You just let them die and just run them up there with Hoof It. Who gives a shit?
That's fair. Something I think that they've done that's intelligent, not to turn this into like a scenario cast, but in some of those plays, because they've got the different zones where only infantry can score, or only warjacks can score, or war beasts can score, the effectiveness of jamming is sort of tempered by the fact that they aren't scoring. So say if we take a scenario like Breakdown, right? You jam with the infantry, right? Because it's the 12-inch deep zones, it's hard to get to the other side on turn 1. You're not scoring the middle. So your opponent can concentrate on driving up the middle and pushing you out, and they start scoring and you're not. So I think there's a lot of more developed and advanced play that we haven't seen yet, because the scenarios, even though most of us have been sort of playing around with them for quite a while, they haven't seen competitive play or the high level play where we've seen that type of action on the table. And I'm really excited to see stuff like that, hopefully at the WTC.
It's kind of an interesting symptom. So in the past, before pre-measuring Mark II, I always used to use zones basically as pre-measure, right? So you knew where your threat ranges are, and it feels like everybody kind of like threw that out the window and didn't think about it as a point of counterplay. And now it is actually really important, with as integral as scenario is to the current tournament scene. And so, just as you're saying, you're going to see some more nuanced play revolving around how you position and how you threaten and control those the new zones. So there's a lot of interesting ways to look at that type of gameplay.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be really exciting just to see how the top level players approach the different scenarios and how it's going to affect list composition, because I really think that the steamroller is going to be driving the meta.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so just as a closing note, since we did go into the tank a little bit there on scenario, the last thing we might want to talk about is we've got Attack X coming up here in 3 weeks, I believe. Are either of you attending?
Out of my travel range.
Shh, Fraser, come on, just sell one of your kids. It'll be all right.
I have children instead of money.
This is usually the case with most people.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. I was wanting to talk about an upcoming con. All right, well.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
I would love to go.
I also have a child instead of money. So there is that. Well, do we have anything cooking on the back burner, Fraser? Anything cool coming up? More charities, more tournaments coming up?
Not anything that's coming to mind. There's always local tournaments in the Southern Ontario area. I know Mark, Combo Smite Mark has one in London, Ontario, which is coming up the second week in September. It's a Sunday, which Sunday tournaments are rare, which is it kind of ticks me off because Sunday tournaments are much easier for me to get to. But of course, this is the Sunday.
Champions, Fraser. We're gonna run a Champions.
I know, and I really want to go to it, but I've taken my first week of vacation, I think, since last year, the first week in September after Labor Day, and I've got plans with my wife that weekend, so it's kind of hard to step out for a tournament when I'm committed. So it's but I will look at the Champions events. Definitely intrigue me. They're not. You don't have to be fully painted for them, do you?
No, he's waiving that requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very common for a lot of local area Champions events where it's not, lock and load kind of situation.
Yeah, I'm about 90%. Well, a little less now that I've had to put some models together, but I'm usually close to at least being primed with a halfway decent base coat. Not to the point where I'm happy with it, but at least to the point where I feel I can at least put it on the table.
Yeah, that's about where my army is. It's got the Meridius blue base coat. That's about as far as I am.
Wow. Well, I'm about to get back into the swing of things as far as painting goes. The weather here is starting to turn finally. The clouds are starting to come back, and it's not so hot. The paint dries on the brush while you're indoors, so I'll have some progress. And probably front and center will be the big man, like I showed off earlier, Mr. Borka here. Gonna be a pretty fun project.
Yeah, look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. So, all right, and then the only thing really that I have coming up is we got the team tournament, the team tournament in Portland, where you get guys from Northern California, all over Oregon, and then there's usually 2 to 3 teams coming from Washington State. So it's going to be a pretty big event. I think we're planning on having at the very minimum 12 teams this year at 5-man teams a pop. It's going to be big. So we're really looking forward to it, and hopefully the apocalypse doesn't try to come to the West Coast this year like it did last year and prevent a third of the teams from coming. Stupid weather.
I was gonna say, Darrell, is it wrong that I said, "Oh, he's got a 12-team tournament"? Isn't that nice? What's the OTC like? 24 teams last year, or this year?
I don't know, we maxed the venue capacity.
I think it was like 28 teams. So you've got a cute little 12-man 5-man team tournament.
I look forward to the days when the Northwest can supply a tournament of that size. I think that would be fucking fantastic.
Oh yeah.
I really look forward to that kind of thing. Plus, like you guys said, I love team events. Like there's just a different air about it.
Yeah.
It feels different. And then what we've also discussed with the Oregon guys who are holding it is the events probably after this year are going to be held in a convention center that doesn't care if we drink. So kudos for that.
Yep.
Really love it.
Yeah, tomorrow or Saturday we're looking at about 20 teams for the fundraiser.
It's crazy.
Yep.
I like it though. That's fantastic.
Go big or go home.
Yeah.
And that's just in a local mall. That's not even like in a full.
We're filling a section of the mall.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, hopefully the size of the event will make it slightly less sharky for you guys.
Well, probably not, but that's okay. I've grown used to it.
Right? So we're going to have fun. And
yeah, exactly.
Have a few drinks and things like that. So.
But for speaking of the OTC, there could be a TrollbloodScrum team because apparently all the U.S. guys love coming up to Canada because it's at the way the dollar is right now. You're getting like a 30% discount.
There you go. Get them to come up.
Meneth John was talking. He could not believe how cheap going to the Sioux was. Because and talk to Richard Beer Machine. He's the poster child, and he's our devil's advocate for getting Americans to come up to our Canadian events because they're so damn cheap with the way the dollar is.
And he brings good beer.
He does.
Those growlers were awesome.
Yeah, they were fantastic.
And I don't know, man. If I can convince Dallas, that'd be a pretty interesting team event to go to.
And you guys can crash here because I've got more than enough room at my place, so you can definitely crack.
Yeah.
It's a
Dallas had to be a party animal when he's away from.
There you go. We'll give him the special root beer.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the venue is phenomenal. So
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
highly recommend it.
Yeah, the OTC, or if you don't make it to the OTC, the Sioux are probably the best two events I've ever been to, and I know a lot of people say that they're in the top tier of top 5 of all the events. So
Yeah, like I love TempleCon, but I think the Sioux is right up there with it. So
yep.
it was good. Well, gentlemen, if we don't have anything else to talk about, I think we prattle on for just about long enough.
Almost, but it makes it a little bit less editing for Danny.
7 minutes he doesn't have to worry about.
Did you have anything you wanted to push, promote, tell us about, Darrell?
Yeah, plug it, man. Give us your Facebook, your website, all that stuff.
Oh no, just your standard, Combo Smite. Search us; it's easy to find. Combo Smite on Facebook, combosmite.com. We got our videos. We go live every Thursday, so tomorrow night, 7-ish, 6:37 on Twitch and YouTube.
Are you playing tomorrow night?
Yes, I am playing tomorrow night.
Do you know who you're playing yet?
It'll be my Calandra Ragnar pairing. It'll be the last night of practice. And if you're a Troll fan, it's going to be, I've been playing Trolls for 6 months. It's the last night I'm playing Trolls until CID drops, like the Northkin drop. So it'll be Protectorate after that.
Dirty ret. But we know you'll be back. That's the important part.
Oh, yeah. I do it as a palette cleanser. I don't want to get too good with a faction, right? So you gotta switch it up.
I only play one faction, so I don't even have that as an excuse. So,
Well, it's the one I use, right?
yeah, of course.
It's the go-to.
Alrighty, well, Darrell, thank you for joining us this week. It has been a pleasure, and on that bombshell, this has been the Scrumcast, signing off.
Cheers.
Okay, hitting stop. So thank you for jumping in at the last minute. We appreciate that, Darrell.